Right then, if you're an environmental health officer, this is your practical field guide for inspecting a Printworks. We're going to break down the key points of the Statutory Process Guidance Note 6/16 so you can walk onto any site feeling completely prepared.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with the statutory guidance. That's what underpins your authority. Then we'll get into how to size up the operation, what to look for when it comes to controlling emissions, the different compliance routes an operator can take, and finally, the all-important evidence trail you need to follow. First up, your statutory guidance. Before you even think about stepping onto a site, you've got to be rock solid on the legal framework you're working in and the authority that it gives you.
The first thing to get your head around is that this isn't just some local advice, it's statutory guidance for the entire UK. So it doesn't matter if you're inspecting a site in England, Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland, this is the single, consistent framework that applies everywhere.
Now, at the very heart of your job is this concept of best available techniques, or BAT for short. Look, this is not a rigid checklist you just tick off. It's a principle, and it relies on your professional judgment. As the regulator, it's up to you to decide what actually constitutes BAT for each specific site, and you've got to consider its unique size, its processes, and even where it's located. Section 2, Sizing up the Printworks. So, how do you start applying that BAT principle? Well, it all begins with understanding the scale of the operation you're inspecting, because that scale is what determines exactly which set of rules apply. Your first port of call is this table. You need to figure out if the site qualifies as a solvent emissions activity, and you do that by checking how much solvent they get through in a year against these thresholds. So, for example, a heatset web offset printer, well, they cross the line at 15 tons a year, but a publication rotogravure site has a higher threshold of 25 tons.
This diagram here, this really gets to the heart of the environmental risk of pretty much any Printworks. Volatile Organic Compounds, or VOCs. Every single stage, from the bulk storage of inks right through to cleaning the machines and getting rid of waste, is a potential point where these compounds can be released.
So, using that diagram as our guide, it's absolutely vital to distinguish between two types of emissions. First, you've got your captured emissions. That's the stuff that's collected and vented up a stack, usually through some kind of abatement system. But then you've also got fugitive emissions. These are the ones that just kind of escape from general handling, spills, leaks, and open containers. Both are your responsibility to assess. Which brings us neatly on to Section 3, Controlling Key Emissions. Now that we know where the VOCs are coming from, what are the best available techniques an operator should be using to manage them? You should be looking for a whole suite of controls here. It starts with simple but really effective housekeeping. Are used wipes kept in sealed, self-closing metal bins? Is the ink mixing done in covered systems? And it goes all the way to more advanced stuff, like enclosed, automated cleaning machines and a proper program for monitoring solvent use against production. The goal is to stamp out those fugitive losses at every single stage.
Okay, let's move on to Section 4 and talk about operator compliance pathways. See, under the Industrial Emissions Directive, an operator has a choice. There are two distinct routes they can take to manage their solvent emissions. So the big question for you as the regulator is this: how can a Printworks actually comply with the directive? You need to be crystal clear on the two options they have, because your inspection is all about verifying the path they've chosen.
And here they are, the two options. Option 1 is what you might call the end-of-pipe solution. Basically, they install abatement equipment like a thermal oxidizer and have to meet strict limits on what comes out of the chimney. Option 2, which is actually the preferred method because it tackles the problem at the source, is the reduction scheme. Here, the operator focuses on cutting their overall solvent use from the very beginning, maybe by switching to water-based inks. Their compliance is then checked against an annual target emission.
This brings us to our final section, and honestly, it's all about the proof. Section 5, the evidence trail. Whichever compliance path the operator has decided to go down, you need to know exactly what paperwork to look for.
You have the right to see the evidence. You should be asking for records of all their monitoring, their tests, and their inspections. The big one to look for is their annual solvent management plan. Think of it as a mass balance that tracks every bit of solvent coming in and going out, making sure it's all accounted for. And of course, make sure you check staff training records and the written procedures for when things go wrong, like an abatement plan failure.
And finally, never, ever forget the weight of your responsibility. The guidance is completely explicit.
In cases where non-compliance is causing an immediate danger to human health or the environment, you must suspend the operation. This just highlights the real authority you have to protect the public and our environment.
So the real question is your next inspection ready for scrutiny? By using this framework, understanding the guidance, sizing up the plant, identifying the controls, knowing the compliance routes, and following that evidence trail, you are absolutely equipped to conduct a thorough, effective inspection and make sure the Printworks in your patch operate safely and within the law.